In this video, we're going to take a look at the process of getting a model over from Nomad into the new PROCREATE 5.2 beta. I recently got access to the PROCREATE beta. It's a public beta. Anybody can go online and apply, and you can try out this process for yourself. I'm going to very quickly sculpt a pumpkin. Not really going to go over too much in detail what I'm doing to sculpt this. I just want to get something that I can do a painting in, that I can repaint the texture in PROCREATE. Even so, I'm going to take an initial pass here in Nomad at some color, just so I can show you the process of how that carries over. Also, I'm going to add a lot of sculptural detail in here that we can eventually transfer as a normal map. Now, spoiler alert, the process of going from Nomad into PROCREATE in the way I'm going to do, it's not very easy. It's not a simple, one and done thing. There's quite a process we have to go through. We actually have to take the model through Blender, and we have to create new topology for the object and then create UVs. If those things are all new terminology to you, I warn you, there's going to be quite a learning curve getting a model from here into PROCREATE where you can paint it. What we really need to see eventually is an app come along for iPad that might allow us to do retopology and UVs. My hope is maybe something like Gravity Sketch might eventually do that. Currently, Gravity Sketch does that in VR, and they have announced that they are aiming for feature parity with iOS, I believe. Assuming that's still the plan, I don't know when that's going to happen, but right now that's kind of what I'm holding out hope for. So here I'm just working in some basic colors. I'll do the depth filtering on my painting for the stem and stuff, just so easily paint in some cavities and stuff with some darker colors. We are going to export out of Nomad to a GLTF format that Blender will read. And I'll do that here in a little bit. I'm getting pretty close on the sculpt of the pumpkin. Again, I'm not going to go into too much technical detail about the sculpting. Even once we get to the Blender portion, I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail. I will say that I use a couple of plugins. They are paid plugins. One of which is Quadremesher, which does retopology. It'll very quickly retopologize a mesh, and it saves a lot of time, and it's a really easy thing to do, so I like to use that. But you can always do manual retopology. So here I am in Blender. I exported GLTF from Nomad, got it in Blender, and here you're going to see me use the Quadremesher tool to take this dense mesh that you see here in Nomad, and once I run it through Quadremesher, it takes a little bit to calculate. You can see it gives me a really nice simplified topology. Sometimes I might tweak the settings to kind of get the topology maybe in a really nice place. So I'm going to actually do it twice here. I think I can be happy with this. From here, I'm just going to very quickly select some edge loops and mark my UV seams and then unwrap the UVs. I could just do an auto unwrap, but honestly, it really helps to have a nice UV layout for when we get to PROCREATE, because you can actually paint on the flattened out UV maps. So I'll do that here. It doesn't take a lot of time. Just select some edge loops, mark seams, and hit UV unwrap. And you can see there's a nice UV layout. I'm then going to go through the exact same process here for the stem. The other plugin I'm about to use here in a second is Bystedt's Blender Baker, I believe is what it's called. It's a kind of pay-as-you-want plugin on Gumroad, and I'll put links to both Quadremesher and the Blender Baker here on the YouTube channel, or on this YouTube video, so you can look for that if you're interested. The baking plugin just really, it's absolutely worth doing it, and you just pay what you can afford to pay for the plugin, because it really takes a lot of the pain out of baking out both color maps and normal maps, which is something we need to do for this process. We're going to bake the color from the vertex color onto our UV'd mesh, and then we're also going to bake the normals. So here I'm actually combining, or I'm selecting both objects, and I'm just packing the UVs to where they're all the right scale. I like to average island scales and hit pack UVs. All right, so from here, I now have my retopoed pumpkin and stem, and then I have the high res one. And I'm going to go into my baking settings. I'm going to go ahead and crank up the resolution to 4K, so it's nice and high resolution for me to paint and Procreate. All right, and this isn't going to be a full tutorial on how to use this plugin. He has a great video that works out all this stuff. Basically, I have to create a bake collection. I then attach, I match up the low res to the high res mesh, and I tell it to bake down both a color and a normal map. Outside of that, what I'll do is I'll actually switch the color map to the other color map that comes in from Nomad, which is the roughness and metallic. I'm really just going to bake down the roughness this way. And so that way I can get that to come through. At the end of the day, we'll have to export everything back out, these individual meshes. And the only way to really get the normal map that I found out into PROCREATE 5.2 is by exporting a USDZ file. Now, unfortunately, Blender can't export a USDZ file natively without having to go through like an extra plugin and being on Mac OS. However, I did find a really easy workaround for that. Something I think is actually a really good practice, and that's that I will export this mesh and the roughness, color, and normal maps out to Sketchfab, and from Sketchfab you can download a USDZ that has all that packed in. If you don't have a Sketchfab account, you should absolutely get one so you can start uploading your models and showing them off that way. What I'm going to do here is, now that I've gone through this whole process, I'm actually going to upload this model to Sketchfab, and I'll put a download link so you guys can also download this pumpkin if you wanted to try out painting and Procreate from a Nomad model. So here I've got all my maps baked in. I'm just setting them up, making sure I get the color of the roughness. Here you can see I'm switching to the roughness. I'm going to bake that out, and then once again I'll save it to Sketchfab, and I'll provide a download link, and from there you just download, you can tell it to download the USDZ and be able to import that straight into Procreate. It works really well. All the things come through. The roughness map comes through, the normal map comes through, and the color map. Again, this isn't an easy process. I really wish it were a lot simpler than having to go through all this mess. I mean, ideally, I would love an option that keeps everything straight up in the iPad and on the iPad, but just right now that's just not possible, and it's really not something that's in the cards for Procreate anytime soon. So here I'm just about got my roughness map all baked out. I ended up having to do it twice because when I first baked out the roughness map, it actually saved over my old color map. So I had to go in, rebake out the color, rename it, and then save out the roughness once more. So just be aware that it's a good idea once you bake them to maybe move the baked files or rename them so they don't get overwritten accidentally. And here I'm just plugging in my roughness and just making sure it all looks good here. And from here, I'm going to export out I believe I exported out just an FBX just to get this into Sketchfab. Sketchfab will accept a variety of formats. You could do OBJ, FBX, or whatever. But here it is in Sketchfab, and again, there's a link we'll put here to this, so you can download this pumpkin, check it out yourself, so you can modify it, play around with it. If you do so, let me know in the comments below what you've done. I'd love to see what you do. But now you just hit download 3D model, download the USDZ, and voila, you can pull it right into Procreate, and it looks really good to go. And after you get through all that trouble, this is really where it pays off, because now you get to really take advantage of all the good stuff Procreate has to offer. The awesome brush engine, all the cool brushes you can do in Procreate. It's got transform tools that work in 3D. I did find these a little clunky. I wish they worked a little bit better. Later, I realized that probably the best thing for transforming this this happy Halloween around on the pumpkin would have been to actually go into the 2D mode. I'm not sure I actually show that here, but there is a 2D mode where you can just paint straight up on the laid out UVs that way. Nevertheless, it's a lot of fun to play around with this. I'll play around here with some filters. They all work in 3D. Maybe one of the things I noticed was lacking is there was no text layers. We couldn't get some of the Procreate text layers in 3D, but that's fine. I like handwriting my text anyways. It keeps it nice and it gives it a nice hand feel. You can alter hue saturation, do the Gaussian blur, all those fun filters. Even the glitch and halftone effects are in there. I'll do some halftone effects here in a little bit. Use the smudge tool. As great as it is being able to paint in Nomad, you just can't beat a nice dedicated paint app like Procreate. And this is really exciting. Even though there are some small shortcomings, it's really exciting just to know where this is going to go, and it's really just a lot of fun to paint in. So I look forward to doing more paints in 3D like this in Procreate. And it just kind of works. If you're not familiar with Procreate, it's next to Nomad, it's the other must-have art app on the iPad. So this is awesome. And here I'm just messing with different layers. I did have it crash once when I grouped a bunch of layers and tried to transform them. Other than that, I didn't really run into any hiccups. One thing I did notice though, when I finished this video, I was ready to start making a thumbnail, and I did realize that one of the shortcomings is there's no easy way to export a render or a thumbnail from Procreate, which is really annoying. And you would think with an app like Procreate, you could just save off your canvas. But instead, even if you export like a JPEG, it does it from some preset camera angle. Surely that's something they'll fix here very shortly, and maybe that's just a beta problem. So what I ended up having to do for the thumbnails, I actually exported this back out and put it back onto Sketchfab, and I just take my thumbnail from Sketchfab, because Sketchfab, you can render just by doing screen grabs, or you can go to Sketchfab Labs if you Google that, and they have like a screenshot utility that's really handy. So anyways, that was a little bit annoying. Here I mess with adding some detail in the stem, and I'll mess with changing the blending modes. That's a lot of fun. Again, something that's really unique to being able to have a really nice dedicated painting app. This stuff, you're going to get so much more resolution too than you would painting vertex color in Nomad. It's just really nice, and you can see the normal map came through. They did mention that they may eventually allow you to paint the normal map, but right now you can only paint the roughness, metallic, and color maps, and you can edit those individually. Here I'm going to play with some simple effects, maybe try some halftoning and stuff. It actually separates things out by object, so you can click on just the stem, just paint on the stem, or click and just paint on the main pumpkin. So that's pretty cool. And one of the last little features I'm going to show, I'm going to play around with some lighting, which is neat. You can mess around with that. It's got HDRI maps and that stuff. And here at the end, I'm going to show you can actually pull it into AR, and you can use your iPad or iPhone's, I guess it'd just be your iPad's camera, to see the 3D object in AR. So we're going to take a look at that here in a second. It's a really cool thing to do. Unfortunately, my model, I think when I had it in Blender, it was below the origin, so it doesn't 100% look like it's sticking to the table, but it works pretty well and it tracks pretty well. Anyways, I hope you guys like this. If you have any questions or want to see me check out anything in the Procreate beta, let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, apply for the beta yourself, give it a shot, and I'll talk to you guys later.